Access to Democracy is made possible by donations from the following organizations. Thomson Reuters, a global company with expertise and insight to unravel complex situations in the areas of law, tax, compliance, government, and media. Their worldwide network of journalists and editors keep customers up to speed on relevant global events. Crutchfield Dermatology, a full-service treatment center and Medi-Spa in Eagan. Their goal is to help you look good and feel great with beautiful skin. With service built around courtesy, dignity, and respect, Mayo-trained Dr. Charles Crutchfield personally treats each patient and is acknowledged as one of the nation's best physicians. Truestone Financial, with locations in Minnesota and Wisconsin, has proudly served its members since 1939. Truestone engages, educates, and supports its members to ensure they have the tools to empower their financial well-being. Truestone Financial, your neighborhood credit union. Learn more at truestone.org. Edina Eye Physicians and Surgeons, a division of Twin Cities Eye Consultants, has proudly served the Twin Cities for more than 55 years now in 7 convenient locations. Using the most advanced technology combined with human touch, Edina Eye offers comprehensive services and dedicated specialists committed to excellence with innovative procedures and expertise for the most advanced eye care.
Welcome. Access to Democracy returns. And this is Alan Miller with a guest who has returned for many, many, many times. He's been state senator since 2006. Jim Carlson of what is now District 51. God knows what it's going to be after the census. But Jim, welcome back.
Thank you, Alan. I'll have to stop calling it Area 51.
It's like a second home to you already.
Yes.
Jim, I am so depressed about the state of politics in this country and in this state and the partisanship that seems to be tearing us apart. I know you're in the Senate, which is just a couple of votes short of a majority. The result is that we end up with special sessions. We end up getting things not done, incomplete. My frustration is boiling over, but I can't imagine what yours is like.
I am at least as frustrated as you. But you know, there's an old saying that I use, being in politics is kind of like having a child, even though I can't. But the woman will go through the pain, go through the dislike of the situation she's in, but then after the child is delivered, everything is positive. And you know, the woman will carry that with pride and actually probably not want to have another child. So it boosts you up and it makes you optimistic for the future. I just had an experience like that with a caller who called me and left me a strong email. And I have to say there were some inappropriate words in it. It was a young woman. I could tell she was young. She was opposed to line 3, and largely she wanted me to get off my butt and do something, with a lot of other words thrown in. And I thought, I got to call this woman.
Line 3 pipeline.
Yeah, the line 3 pipeline. Stop it. Get off your butt and stop it. And so I called her back. And she was so sweet.
Is she aware that you've been opposing all these oil lines for a career?
She didn't even know that I was a state senator and not a federal senator. So we had a very good talk. And she is young. I found out she's 22. She is a person of color. She is actually partly Cuban by ancestry. She says that she's to the left of the left, and she didn't know anything about what to do. She was just so frustrated that she evidently Googled senator and then started calling down the list and telling them that they had to do something about the pipeline and about energy and about the environment. And we had a great conversation. And if we had time and close-ups, I could show you the texts that she's been sending me, and they're wonderful. And I've already got her connected with some other people. All she needed was to be listened to and to be given a little bit of an insight as to how to get her values done.
But what this indicates is that there is among the electorate ignorance of really who stands for what,
Yep.
who is their representative, what are the issues that are important to them, and how they can contact other than vote. And sometimes they're so frustrated that they vote against their own interests because
right.
they don't even know.
Yeah, I don't want to call it ignorance. I call it an information deficit because that can be fixed. And in her case, I think I've fixed it. I get a text from her every day. She has apologized several times for her first voicemail, and I told her, hey, the reason I called you back is you're so vocal and you expressed yourself so well, and I want to make sure that you get heard. And so she is. I'm going to turn her on to the caucuses. I've already turned her out to. And in fact, her senator is our new minority leader, Melissa Franson, and her representative is the former councilman in Bloomington, Steve Elkins. Two very effective legislators and the minority leader. And I said, you now have nominated yourself to be one of their advisors because I'm going to tell them who you are and how you expressed yourself. And in fact, it's obvious that you have no qualms about calling people up and advising them what you think. So you'll be a very valuable person when the time comes to do phone calling.
Those are the kind of people that we have to get involved and really functioning in the political system rather than just sitting on the sidelines and complaining.
Exactly, yes. So, and I told her that, you made my day, you made my week. And then later I said, you made my month because I feel really good about knowing you now. That's the kind of thing that carries us through all of this depression and frustration, all of that sort of thing, because I am frustrated too. I'm frustrated with the media not covering things the way I would like to see them cover it, the way that some of these meetings are cooked up to be able to get campaign literature out of them. For instance, the one that we had yesterday was a combination meeting between the Judiciary Committee and the Transportation Committee, and the sole purpose of it was to make John Choi look bad because he says that these...
On the crime rate.
Right, yep.
Yes.
Blaming him for the crime rate. And thankfully now, in Eagan here, we have a great police chief, and I've been working with him and listening to him, and he knows what's what. But there's a lot of people that are not that keyed into things.
Well, Roger New is very informed. Yes. He's very dedicated, and he really stays on top of issues. And
he does.
He
yes.
has always been a pleasure to work with. And he was recently, as a matter of fact, a guest host here, and he moderated an interview.
Oh, good. Okay.
With the sheriff.
Oh, now see, we have 4 black police chiefs in Minnesota.
Right.
Roger is one, and then another one that I've become a little bit close to is Chief Blair Anderson from St. Cloud.
Blair has been a guest here multiple times.
That's right, yes. I think I did see him here once, too. And they know what's what. And they did not, they have to be careful about violating the thoughts of the entire police force. They don't want to come off sounding like they're people that want to thump people, and they also don't want to sound like they want to let people go. So they have some alligators to avoid, and they're on thin ice. But both of them were, well, actually yesterday Blair Anderson was on, and one of the things he said was that we have to find ways to work with people. We need to work with the mental illness issues that we have, and we're trying to do that, but we're frustrated because the legislature won't even hear those bills. The Republican majority in the Senate won't hear the bills.
It's the same thing that's happening on a federal level, where so much legislation can't even be brought forward to be discussed.
Yes.
Or they can't even agree to bring something to the floor in the Senate to talk about it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's beyond my comprehension that people who have taken an oath of office and an oath to the Constitution can then really spit on the document and turn their back on it. And, you know, it's in 87 years, I have never felt as much frustration with government as I do today. And it's really one side of a government that frustrates me. It's the people who oppose everything. It's the people who say that they won't bring it to the floor for discussion. It's the people who won't allow a vote to be taken. It's the people who don't represent their own constituents and don't listen to them, but would rather just be negative.
Yeah, yeah. Well, we have right now $250 million that are waiting in an account to be distributed amongst the people that were frontline workers. Now, frontline workers might be considered healthcare in hospitals. They might be considered first responders. They might also be considered the people at the restaurant that you go to where they have to come to work. A lot of other positions like that. And the committee that's on it is a balanced committee of Republicans and Democrats, but the Republicans refuse to listen to anything but their own, the people
Concepts.
that they want to work for, and not spread it to a larger number. And they won't agree to anything because, or actually the Democrats won't agree to anything, because if we go into a special session to distribute that, what the Republicans have promised is they're going to take up the confirmation of the Commissioner Jan Malcolm, who has done a tremendous job.
She has done, in a really crisis time, she has done a great job. But then they have the same attitude toward the governor. And I think that this governor has stepped in at a time when we could not have had anybody better at the helm. To handle the COVID crisis, to handle the masking, to handle the vaccinations, and the other things that have been thrown in his path. And yet, you hear nothing but disparagement from the other side.
Well, you know, I'm getting a lot of email yet on the vaccinations, that the vaccinations are harmful, that the vaccinations kill people, that the vaccinations, vaccines have only been released as an emergency, they've not been proven, and all of those are wrong. They're not true, and anybody can find that information. You know, we just had Pfizer release the vaccine for children now. You know, what do we think, that that's not been tested? That has been tested immensely.
Who is in the hospital right now? Who is in the ICU right now? It's not people like myself, in rare cases, yes, who have had their vaccinations or their boosters, who qualify for them. It's people who have been anti-vaxxers and really refuse to take vaccinations, refuse to use their heads.
Yeah, and there's something that the government did that maybe helps cause the lack of attention, and that is the federal government is paying for everything right now. We have a single-payer system. You know, people that say, oh, we don't want to have a single-payer system. We do right now.
Yes.
It's the federal government that is paying for every one of your tests, every one of your vaccines, and all of your hospitalization. And if people start to think a little bit, they ought to know that that's going to end. That maybe the vaccines will be paid for, like your shingles vaccines and things like that. Your insurance company has been mandated to pay for those. But sooner or later, when you go to the hospital, if you're not vaccinated and you come out of there with a $50,000 bill, you might have to be on the hook to pay for it. Because, especially if you chose not to be vaccinated and then got exposed and got COVID. So it's, you know, those days are going to end where the government is going to run out of the money that's now being poured into that to cover the hospitalization for everyone.
And it's going to take a tragedy like that to really wake some people up.
It's probably true.
You know, what grieves me is, as I read the news, I see a 38-year-old mother of 4 whose husband just died, unvaccinated, and she said, well, I'm getting vaccinated now, and we're vaccinating the children because they're old enough, and I wish that my husband had agreed to be vaccinated. Well, you can't bring him back.
Yeah.
And
They played Russian roulette and they lost the game. And now, I just saw an interview of a nurse from Alaska, and she said up there they have so much anti-vax attitude that she said, I was holding a woman's hand and she was dying of COVID, and she denied that she had it. And she actually struck out at her. And people are leaving the profession because there's so much anti-vax attitude that it comes into the hospitals.
And it's complete misinformation.
That's right.
Where does it come from? It comes from the right wing. It comes from evangelicals. And for that matter, I think some of it actually comes from overseas.
I think so. I think, that this is what we've been talking about for 15 years, that the next conflict with Russia is going to be cyber conflict. It's going to be cyber
I think it already is.
Yeah.
I think we see that, and if the Mueller report had gone all the way, we would have seen it in the Mueller report.
That's right.
But Mueller didn't go all the way, which I think he should have.
I think so too. Yeah.
And I think that it's
getting
alarming. It's time for people to wake up. It's time for people to move away from social media and to pick up a newspaper,
right,
or to read a magazine, a news magazine, or to inform themselves. Instead, they're locked in their own stupidity.
Lack of information deficit.
Uninformation.
Sure. Yeah.
I call it stupidity. If you're too stupid to get yourself informed, you're stupid.
Well, that's how James Carville says.
I'm with James on that one.
But, I know some people that are bright and that have fallen into this. And I can't understand why. I can't understand it.
That's why when Jim Jones had everybody drink the Kool-Aid, all these other people, some of them who were intelligent and educated and otherwise, drank the Kool-Aid with him. And, where did they end up?
Yeah.
And we have a large segment of our population that's drinking the Kool-Aid. And I think these people were always there. I think they were unleashed by Trump.
Yes.
And I think that that's what we are seeing. But I really think that they were always there, afraid to open their mouths, didn't have social media, and then Trump, in his misogyny and his ignorance and his lying and in all of his lesser qualities, unleashed them.
Yeah, George, I don't always agree with George Will, but he's a good writer and good analyst. And he said in, I think it was probably 2015, he was afraid of these people that were starting to collude. And he said, I'm not so afraid for the next presidential election, but I'm afraid when these people all find out that they have a large group that agrees with each other, and they're all based on the conspiracy theories. We haven't gone to the moon, 9/11 was an inside job, all of these things, that when they start to gather together, they're going to be an amazing force. And I think that's what they are.
And it is frightening.
Yeah.
And January 6th is a perfect indication of the fact that you have a president who talks about tourists in the Capitol as they're defecating, as they're staining the walls with their own urine, as they're attacking police officers with weapons, as they're putting 140 of them in the hospital. And you call that a tourist visit? I mean, come on.
And then the next step is, when do you get to refuse a subpoena to testify? In any court case, in any committee case, when do you get to refuse it and get away with it? You don't. everybody that goes to court for anything has that possibility of having to have some witnesses for and against. And you get subpoenas. And you can't just ignore them because a judge signs them and they're exercised on you.
And you can lie about executive privilege, but the fact of the matter is, case law and other law indicates that an ex-president doesn't have executive privilege. And it's going to be very interesting. There are two people who are supposed to testify today. I don't know if they did or not. But certainly we see it with Steve Bannon, who wasn't even working for government, and is saying that, well, I don't have to testify because I have executive privilege.
Yeah.
The ex-president told me, and I won't repeat his name. I think that I'll follow the Stephen Colbert method of not mentioning his name. We'll call him Orange Man for lack of anything better.
There'll be a lot of books written.
But it's I hope that there is still a country and a world left where books can be written.
Yeah.
Because I see us heading toward a precipice, and I'm afraid that civilization could fall off that precipice, and democracy, our most precious really value, is really endangered at this time.
Yes, yeah, it is. Well, you know, that's the national scene. I know that you talked about coming back to the state scene here. I don't know if
we're blowing.
We always get off the track.
Time in this interview, but yeah, in the state scene, we have all the state officers up this year,
yes,
including yourself. We have to deal with redistricting first to find out what the new districts are. But the governor has announced he's running. Half a dozen Republicans, some of whom have been on this show, have announced that they are running, and I hope that they're pointing themselves toward the hills, so that that's where they're running. And we have our Secretary of State, who really shepherded probably one of the best elections in the country.
Yes.
Fraud-free election, who is running. Our state auditor, who just brought an important lawsuit in behalf of her office on a case of fraud, is running, and our Attorney General, who has done an unbelievable job, far beyond what I thought he was capable of, is running.
And he has not been partisan in that office either.
No, he has not. Including with the people who work for him, who have not been partisan. There was not any mass firing in that office of people in that office. And he's done a terrific job, including as late as today, and including, I think, the Bremer Bank case, and, among others. Plus, all our local representatives. Liz Ryer, who's done a nice job here in the legislature, and certainly Sandra Mason, who has done a nice job in the legislature for over a decade, a decade and a half.
And she goes everywhere. She's visiting everywhere. Sandy and I went up to Rogers, I think it was Monday. You know, all these days kind of merged together. We went up there to look at traffic safety in a construction zone. And they wanted us to come up there and view it personally. And at first I thought, you know, you've seen one construction zone, you've seen them all. But we decided, let's go up there. So Sandy and I drove up there. And they took us out on some of the places where flagmen need to work and where trucks are going in and out. And they're mainly talking about worker safety.
Dangerous.
One of the things they showed us was a log. They put up a speed radar and recording system, and the speed limit is 60 on these in the construction zone, and it might be lower in certain areas where they have a lot of flag people present, but it's 60 if you're just breezing through. And they logged all of the people that went through there, and you know, it was very seldom was anybody under 60. And then they went to every 10 miles an hour up, and probably the most prolific speed was about 80. And then there were some that were 90, several that were 100, and there were some that were over 110 miles an hour going through there. It's just, it's something you cannot even imagine.
It's indicative of the chaos that we are really experiencing in our society at the moment.
Yeah.
And the lawlessness, and the lawlessness in the cities, and it is very frustrating.
Well, it's like
so
Clint Eastwood.
what's your advice?
Take Clint Eastwood's thought, know your limitations. Nobody can drive 110 miles an hour down one of our freeways in a construction zone.
We got a call this morning from one of our daughters, and her best friend, 17 years old, was killed in a speeding car last night.
Ooh.
And she is, of course, distraught. At 1 o'clock in the morning, fighting with her boyfriend with a third person driving. And the couple that was fighting are both dead. The driver was not killed, but I mean, it's just, and this is in a very, very rural, urban area where they live. So, I mean, it's just indicative of everything that you're talking about.
Yeah.
So talk, and we only have 2 minutes left. Talk to the people. Talk to our audience. Talk to voters, and tell them what they can do to help right the ship of state.
Investigate. That's the big thing. If something doesn't sound right, take a look at it. See what the background is. See who sent you this information. If you think that it's something that is maybe a pre-written email, don't click on it. Make sure that the people that are sending you these things really know what they're talking about. And then, for instance, I would say if someone wants you to do a forensic audit, you could call up the Dakota County county attorney, acting county attorney right now, Kathy, or Tom Novak. You know who he is. He's the county auditor, and ask them, how many fraud cases did you refer to the county attorney? And I will guarantee you it is a very, very small number. And if you're outside of Dakota County, call up your own county attorney and ask them how many fraud cases. And recognize that we do audits. We do their random audits, and the information of the output of those audits is something that is on the Secretary of State's website. You can find it.
And
if you can't find it, contact me.
That's Senator Jim Carlson. And I would say, educate yourself. Don't believe social media. Get involved. Make sure that you're registered to vote, and vote. And certainly get active in your community. Try to get people to work. This is access to democracy. And I wish we had more time. We'll be with you again.
Yeah.